Welcome to our YouTube channel, In Our Basement. My name is Niels.
And I'm Gail. We're going to be having conversations and share our thoughts about things that we're really passionate about.
And just before we get started, go ahead and hit that subscribe button.
And if you like the content, then feel free to share it on your social media platform.
All right. Welcome to episode 2 of the podcast, In Our Basement, because here we are in our basement. And I'm so excited because today we're going to talk about friendships and what it means to be a good friend, not a good friend. We're going to talk about how to keep positive community around you, and especially during times like this as we're in COVID in the midst of a pandemic. And then we'll also talk about the impact of online home groups, mainly through church and also how it's important to connect with friends and how you can do that through different ways online. So let's start it off. I'm here hosting with my lovely wife, Gail.
Hello.
My name is Niels. Again, we're so excited that you've joined us today. So Gail, tell us, what are the benefits of friends?
Well, I've got you.
Right.
You're probably... No, not probably. You are my best friend.
That's good. Hashtag bestie.
Yeah.
Hashtag bestie for life, like the number 4 life.
Hashtag friendship goals.
Hashtag. Exactly.
I think the main thing is we were created not to be by ourselves.
No, exactly.
Because God created, we believe that God created the earth and he created Adam. Mm-hmm. And Adam was by himself in the garden. Yeah. And God was like, oh, he's kind of lonely. All right. I'll make him a friend. Out of a rib came Eve. Yeah. So he made him Eve. And I think that just goes to show that we are not created to be alone.
Right. Good example.
As much as I'm an introvert and
that's why I call you my rib, right? Sorry, babe. Keep going. You're an introvert. So
the benefits of a friend is having somebody to talk to come to, and confide in, and somebody to laugh with. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think let's talk about how when we moved up to Yellowknife, because now we had been married, and then months later we were moving up to Yellowknife for the next few years of our lives, essentially starting our lives up together there. And what do you think was significant about that with friendships?
Okay, so I'm somebody who grew up in one city. I was born and raised in one city my whole entire life. Awesome. I lived in one house from the age of 1-year-old to 16, and then my parents sold the house and moved basically up the road.
Nice.
So I was somebody who didn't know different. Mm-hmm. And so then I found you and said I do. And we moved, and so it was so different for me, living in a different city, and basically I'm so thankful for the friends that I have and that I've been able to continue from living in Winnipeg, but now moving outside, I moved to another city. Thankfully, you had friends there.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then
we lived there for a bit, yeah.
You and we moved up north to Yellowknife.
Right, in the Northwest Territories.
Neither of us knew anyone, and so...
No, not really.
We were it's such a small city, and so it was I felt isolated.
Yeah, and totally.
And so it's a city of under 20,000 people.
Yeah.
And so I was so thankful that I was able to find friendships within the church.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's so good. Right off the hop, right? The first Sunday we went there, we had an experience that when we talk about it today, it just brings us so much joy just remembering that moment. Not everyone has that experience, but what was that like? We walked into church, we were new. The church had about maybe 30 to 40 people, I want to say, at the time. Yeah. And we walked in, what happened?
Yeah, I am somebody who went to a church of how much? 2,000?
Yeah, a couple thousand.
So I'm somebody who like came from this big church and then moved to this city where the church is like 30, 40 people. And I was like, oh, and we were welcomed, I think, in the best way that I've ever walked into a church with. And
yeah, it's definitely up there. It's like my top 3 for sure.
Yeah. And so we walked in, and was it after the service or before the service?
You know, it might have been before or during the break, because what was cool was like they had like they would do like worship, and then they would have like a fellowship break, 10 to 15 minutes of like coffee time and getting a tea. Really good time to meet and connect with people and make friends.
Yeah.
And then they would go into the sermon, but I think it might have been during that time.
Yeah. And so this wonderful person who we're still friends with today, she just comes up and she gives me this great big hug.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, hi. And so we were able to connect with people. Then we got invited to another couple's for tea.
Yeah, for tea right after. Yeah.
After church. And then we got invited to a party
later that week. Yeah.
And so it was just like, oh, all of a sudden we're getting connected, and like we're being provided with friends. And another thing cool too is because you're part of the military, we have connections through Military Family Resource Center,
right?
And so there was this lovely girl there who was like the housewife who just got everybody connected.
Yeah, exactly. She was just so sweet and just like had a really good connection with the other military wives.
Yeah, and so I was able to get connected with the military families and the church.
Yeah, totally.
And so like the benefits of friendship is that I was able to go to somebody and connect with, and especially during winter, that's like
it gets
the
dark
most
and cold.
isolating time, and it's just you need somebody to go and talk to, especially for me, like I'm a verbal processor. I need to go to somebody. So yeah
Totally.
Did that answer your question?
No, it totally does. And like also you use the word isolation, and like how many times have we heard that now, self-isolating in the midst of a pandemic. Well, Yellowknife is considered an isolated city, just because of its location and proximity to things, even though it has a lot of essentials. And I would say that one of the things that a lot of people have in common in Yellowknife is that, while well over 50% of the population there is indigenous, which is awesome, there's a lot of other people too that are young, and they come up to work in Yellowknife. They come from all over Canada, some, even all over the world. And I think within the context of the church, something that a lot of people had in common was that there was a lot of people in Yellowknife that weren't from Yellowknife, and it gave us and those people that extra motivation to find that friendship.
Yeah, it's because like everybody who was in Yellowknife had been in that place of oh, I'm new here, I don't have any friends, and so it's like almost like a sympathy. I don't know if sympathy is the right word, but like a care, like, oh, I know how you feel.
Yeah.
And so it's like a compassion towards that.
Yeah, totally. It's like, we bond over that. So how would you define a healthy friendship?
So healthy friendships are something that's so important because there's healthy friendships and then there's unhealthy friendships. And healthy friendships are something that is very energy giving, and unhealthy are very draining.
Right.
And so a healthy friendship, I think the number one, or one of the top for sure, is trust.
Absolutely.
Because I think trust is something that's in any relationship, friendship, family, romantic.
Definitely.
Those are so important. And so you need a good friend to be able to trust that you can go to, and trust that they're not going to gossip, trust that they're going to give you advice that is from their heart, that they believe is true.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's benefiting you and not just benefiting themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Almost like a two-way street.
Yeah,
in some ways, yeah.
because it's important, I think, to have a friendship that's a give and take and not just a take. And so, yeah, that's important too, is for you to, a healthy friendship doesn't just involve the friend, it also involves you in giving and loving on your friend. So,
Yeah, and you kind of touched on, like what are some current questions, we could ask, or what are some questions we can ask about the current friendships we have? So it's like, with give and take friendships, do you want to elaborate on what that could be like?
yeah. And so give and take friendships, I think I'll say that this definitely relates to romance and family. This relates to all relationships, I think, is giving and taking. And that's not something that's physical. It's giving and taking relationally. And so giving into a relationship is giving time, giving care, giving love. And I think, well, that just goes into the 5 different love languages.
What are the 5 love languages? Because I know you highlighted, or we talked about this earlier today, about how, like, those are something important to consider in a friendship.
Yeah. So, like, we each have different love languages, and oftentimes it's funny.
Totally.
It's funny, like, to learn what somebody's love language is how do they show love to you.
True. Yeah. So what's the first one?
So there's 5.
5, yeah.
And no one of them is better than the other.
Except for, no, I'm just kidding.
We were all just created in different ways. And so the 5 love languages is physical touch.
Yeah.
So for a friend, that would be like high five or a hug or a handshake or
a wave, because it's COVID and maybe you're not supposed to touch each other.
Yeah, COVID. Yeah. It's like, hey.
Yeah.
And so that's the first one. Then there is words of affirmation.
Yeah. So
that's like, hey, you're so good at this. Or I really appreciate when you do this for me. It makes me feel so great.
So or thanks, like, that was such a good dinner. Oh, I loved it.
Exactly.
Right, yeah, exactly. Yeah. What's the third one?
Then there's, so physical touch, words of affirmation, acts of service. So that's like acts of kindness. So that would be like, hey, I'm going to come over and I'm gonna unload your dishwasher, or hey, I'm gonna make you dinner,
or in a time like this, it could be like getting groceries for someone because maybe they can't go out because they have to self-isolate because they're sick, right?
For sure. And that's something that so often is needed, is just like, don't even ask, like, can I do this for you? Just do it. Because how often is it that somebody's gonna say yes? Because it's like, it often just makes you feel uncomfortable. So that's 3. Then there is quality time.
Yeah.
So hanging out, going for a walk.
Right. Could be even that FaceTime chat, the video chat.
Yeah. And then there is, last but not least, is physical gifts.
Physical gifts, yeah.
And that is something that is not maybe the most...
No, not really
the
as
top
important
on
to
our
us.
list.
Yeah, exactly.
And like I said, it's just all how you were created. And it has nothing to do with... Yeah.
But for some, it's really special when it's like, oh, hey, I got you this. Or,
Yeah, like some people feel so loved when you give them a gift like, hey, here's a coffee, or would you say that's more of an act of kindness?
It could be an act of kindness, but, the person might receive it as a gift, right? And so just as we're talking about healthy friendships, those are love languages that we've highlighted, which are not just, which can be used as romantic examples, but also, within a friendship, right? And then, we recognize that with friends, which I'll get you to elaborate on, is that sometimes, you might have friendships that are also very draining too. What can that be like?
So I think... For sure, a draining relationship is when you are continuously giving.
Yeah, exactly.
And when I say giving, I mean like listening, giving advice, spending time, because it's something that's giving, and it's like you're not getting any love back. You're not getting, hey, I'm gonna come over and I've got something for you, or let's get together and go get our nails done. I mean, I'm a girl, so I don't know if
I'll probably won't do my nails. No, not today. Yeah, no, I'm just kidding.
You and one of your bros won't ever go get a pedicure?
That'd be so bromantic. Yeah, so I guess with like, you know, a draining friendship, like one where you're always giving, so it's like if you're trying to help someone out and maybe they're doing all the talking and you're listening and you're trying to chime in, you know, friendships where, you know, the give and take, it doesn't mean that it has to be equal, but those friendships can be draining.
Or they just like expect so much out of you.
Yeah, exactly. You know,
it's like, you're not giving me enough advice, or you're not spending enough time with me, and so I don't feel loved. And it's like, I don't have a whole, like, my whole world doesn't revolve around you. And that's like, the expectations need to be set at a healthy way. Like, boundaries is an important thing even to have in like a best friend relationship. Even like, I think you and we have boundaries
absolutely
between us in a healthy
in a very healthy way. So. Yeah, and it's like, you know, with friendships, you know, you also don't want to be in like a transactional friendship where it's like, hey, I give you this, so you give me that in return, right? Yeah. In the Bible, it talks about, you know, being a cheerful giver, whereas in some cultures, you know, that stuff, you know, a transactional friendship or things are calculated, you know, things like that. But I think with the Bible, it talks about just, you know, giving from the heart, not out of compulsion, but giving because you feel compelled to give. And that can be very important in friendships, right? And very important in having a healthy friendship, you know. And so what do we do with non-healthy friendships?
I think
you touched on the word boundaries.
Yeah. So if you have a friend who is unable to respect your time, who's calling you in the middle of the night, or who's gossiping about you, or like it's like, I shared this out of confidence with you, like I needed somebody to talk to, and you went and told so-and-so.
Right.
Or yeah, there's so many different things that could happen. But something that I would suggest, if somebody like doesn't have those boundaries, it's like, okay, you just sit them down in a neutral environment. So like going for a walk or going to a coffee shop and just saying like, hey, I'm going to have to I want to set these boundaries. Like, I love you dearly. Like, I appreciate our friendship, but we're going to have to set these boundaries. And that's like the first thing that I would maybe suggest to do. And if that's not able to be followed, then
but it's 2020. Can I just break up with a friend over text or just kidding. And I do not encourage that. Breaking up over text over a friend or even romantically, that's not encouraged. Why is that not encouraged? You're giving me this look.
Because I feel like that is such an important thing.
But I've had, sorry, you know, but like, sorry to cut you off, but it's like, I've had that where it's like, you know, people will send me a text message. I've been guilty of this too. And there'll be like so much heavy stuff in it. And I'm thinking like, this should be done like over the phone, because you can't sense the person's tone or face to face or in person.
Because like so much of a communication is not just the words, it's facial expression, body language, it's tone of voice. And so like you're reading a message that you mean to be sending in a soft way, because
depending.
When I'm talking like this, it's such a kinder way, and it's so much easier to receive
a kinder way
than when I'm talking like this and I'm so angry.
Yeah.
How is that?
So
when you're wanting to say something serious, especially, is when you need to be talking face to face or video call or over the phone. Don't send it in a letter or a text message, please.
Yeah, exactly.
So I would say that. Yep.
That's good. I want to talk now again, and maybe even come back to like what it's like to really be a good friend. And you know, I think it's really good when, you know, you have like just even a small number of like people that you can call, like, these are my close friends. In my case, you know, like, these are like my bros, right? As opposed to, like, you know, like friends on Facebook, right? Because I think over time, like, the word friend has evolved.
100%.
Right? You want to know who your friends are. Those are the ones that are going to help you move. Right? But now, like, you know, you can become friends with someone online just by simply adding them as a friend. And that's cool too, right? But, you know, the type of friendship we're talking about here is authentic, you know, one-on-one friendships that you can have either in person, you know, or even virtually too.
Yeah, it's somebody who you feel comfortable calling up or getting together and just the two of you, and somebody who you can trust and go and talk to. And yeah,
I would say that I think for myself, like, I feel like I definitely have that. I'm thinking of a really good friend of mine who, you know, we served in ministry together. And then when I moved to Yellowknife, I kept in touch with him all the time. I mean, you know, I think we joked numerous times that, you know, people would say, like, you know, we had a bit of a bromance.
No, it was, you do. You even still do.
Well, you know, his wife approves, and thankfully you approve. But yeah, you know, like, we really were good friends. Like, we served it together in ministry. I got to serve under his leadership. And then when I was in Yellowknife, like, he was very much like an accountability partner to me, especially when I got involved in ministry. And you were gonna share a funny story about how, you know, when me and my friend, we saw each other like 15 days in a row or something.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
This just happened by fluke, but this is pretty funny.
Well, it started out as a fluke, but then you guys just were like, yeah, let's keep this going. So basically, these are two people who are very involved in the church, and they are ones who serve in the same ministries. So they were seeing each other at different church things.
Right. Like, one was like a meeting we had for youth.
Yeah.
Then one was like youth group itself.
Yeah.
And then one was like I was on worship team. And then another time, you know, we had seen each other like 8 or 9 days in a row.
Yeah.
And then I remember there was one time the young adults group was hanging out, and I'm like, oh, I'm probably not going to see him today. So there goes that streak. And sure enough, here he comes going for a jog in the park. And I'm like, dude, we've seen each other for so many days. Let's just keep this going for as long as you can. And what's one of the quirkiest things that you remember about it?
Do you want to know how ridiculous these guys were?
Yeah, we're...
Okay. So, I mean, it's not like it's a huge city. It's not like we were in Toronto or
no, we were in Moose Jaw,
somewhere
Saskatchewan.
big like that. But it was like, oh, I don't think we're gonna see each other today. Oh, well, I'm gonna drive. Oh, me too. Okay, what street are you at? Oh, I'm at so and so. Okay, I'll be right there. And you guys like stopped and waved at each other as we were passing, and you're like, take a picture.
Yeah, to Gail, I'm saying to Gail, take a picture. And that counted as like day like 13 or 14.
Yeah. So, because they wanted to keep it going.
Yeah,
so,
we just wanted to keep it going, you know.
And how long did it last?
It might have been, I want to say maybe 14 or 15 days. Like, it lasted a while, right?
Yeah.
But I think one of the things I love about that friendship is that even to this day, we still keep in touch. We text each other. We keep each other accountable. You know, he checks in on me. I check in on him. It's like, not bro, like, how are you doing? But like, how are you doing?
Yeah.
Right? Like, tell me how you really feel.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think it's important to have that. And that's just an example of like good friendship, a good example of what positive community can look like. And so I want to shift gears and talk about that. In thinking about like, you know, Gail, what are your thoughts on like keeping positive community around us, especially keeping that up during COVID? I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic. Keeping up community and connected with one another is just so hard depending on, you know, the limitations of where you're living. You're in your city, your state, your region. You know, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think like for us living up in Yellowknife, we really benefited learning how to do that because we had friends, especially you. Like, you grew up in one city. Well, you were born in one country.
Born in one country and then grew
you
up
moved
in
another
Canada.
city.
Yeah.
And then you went to school to one city and then moved to another city and then joined the military and moved to another city and then another city. And so it was just like so many different places, and you've been able to keep up relationships from, I think, would you say even where you were born?
Yeah, I would say for the most part, but definitely from the city that I grew up in.
Yeah. And so for me, I was able to learn that living in Moose Jaw and Yellowknife. And so because for me, especially living up in Yellowknife, I felt isolated. I felt alone so many times when it was like those short, cold winter times where like the sun is up for like 3 or 4 hours.
4 hours and then setting. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so it's like sunrise at 10 o'clock, sunset at 3.
Right. You got like seasonal affective disorder kicking in. You know, that's a real thing, right?
And so keeping in the community, I was able to make those FaceTime dates with girlfriends or phone calls with family.
Right.
And so I think that is one of the ways to keep up community right now during this time, especially when so many people are in isolation, whether it be 14-day quarantine or self-isolation, or whether it be that your city is still on lockdown or back into lockdown. And so I would encourage everyone, no matter what, no matter where you are, to continue relationships, even if you're not in the same city.
Right.
And the amazing thing is that we now live in a day that it's not just letters or text messages.
Bring back the pigeons.
Emails or what was that blog thing? Oh, what was that page?
MySpace? No.
Yes, MySpace.
Oh, MySpace. Oh, my goodness.
Or MSN.
MSN Messenger. Oh, yeah. When it's like, you know, you see that like girl that you like, and then it goes, but you don't want to, you know, you see them pop up. You got to wait 10 minutes before you talk to them.
Yeah.
You know, we don't live in that world anymore.
And then like, the cool thing was like, okay, what am I going to make my status say?
Oh, yeah.
And it was like, inspirational quote.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Or I'm feeling.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness.
Okay. Anyways,
community, right? How do we keep
community? And so, for right now, I think we are have so many different resources like Skype and Zoom to have multiple people within those conversations, and Facebook Messenger has video now, and
totally.
There's a really cool app.
That was so cool. Okay, tell us about that app.
We used it once.
Yeah, once for sure. Yeah.
And we need to
do it again. Yeah,
we need to do it again. And so it's called House Party, and basically you're having a party in your house because you can't go out. So it's cool. It's a cool app where you can phone one of your friends on this app or multiple friends. I don't know how many it holds. But we did it with another couple, so there's 4 of us.
Yeah, there was 4 of us.
And
totally.
You basically play games together. And so you're not like having awkward silences because you're playing like charades or what kind of games were in it? Heads up.
Heads up, right, you know, yeah.
And then like with your finger you draw a little picture, and then everybody has to guess what you're drawing.
Yeah, and I think we touched on it a little bit in episode 1 too, right?
Yeah.
Episode 1, you know, with like online dating, or even with you know, meeting someone and connecting with another person, right? Like that's just such a good way to connect with someone, right? Zoom parties is another good one too. Like I saw friends of mine, or one of my friends, he posted on Facebook, like he had some drinks and some food. And next thing you know, they were just like on Zoom having a party together, connecting with each other, saying, "Hey, awesome. What's up?" Right?
That's
like
awesome.
From coast to coast. So I saw that was a really cool way to connect. You know, I think there's also ways in which, like, if you can and if it's safe, like you can even connect with friends outside, right? Like I remember at the start of the pandemic, I remember I think I saw on Facebook friends of ours from church, or it might have been in our church email newsletter, encouraging people, you know, if they can, to get together for like a social distancing walk, you know, and just be safe and maintain that appropriate spacing, getting together in a park, right? Going for coffee, going out to a restaurant if it's safe.
So, but what would you say with us in Canada? Like, we're not in California where it's warm,
Right.
all throughout the year. So, what would you say though to people going into fall and winter where it's going to be snow on the ground, and like different
Right.
people in different cities have different, but like for so many across Canada, it gets to like -30, -40. You can't have those social distance outside.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I mean, you never know. Like Yellowknifers, I remember they're resilient.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
that's
true.
true. Like I remember up
Yeah.
north, like they'll get out on the land and they'll do their thing. Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you can keep that social distance and be safe, I think
Yeah.
that's what it comes down to, right? But yeah, like if it's harsh winters, it would be difficult to connect outside. But then again, I love a good snowball fight too, right? I mean, it's September. It's probably going to snow in September. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
Depending on where you live in
Please,
Canada.
Lord, no.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But that's the reality, where we live in, right? The weather, winter comes quickly here. It gets cold. So there's definitely some really good benefits to having community. And I think one of the things I'm really thankful is that our church did, and other churches, across Canada or even in the States, I saw them promoting online home groups. Now, what was really cool is that me and you, we had a really good experience with our home group. And a home group is essentially a Bible study where just prior to the pandemic, we would go over to someone's house and, we would study the Bible together and gather. And there would be like 8 to 10 of us.
Yeah.
Right. We'd gather for a couple hours. I miss that, right? Like, gather over food and then read the Bible, pray together, pray over each other, worship and sing. And then I remember at the start of the pandemic, we then transitioned that to an online home group. And we did it on Facebook Messenger.
Yes, we did.
And we did it weekly for at least...
Facebook Messenger video.
Yeah, we did a video. Yeah, exactly. It was kind of like Zoom, but except like everyone's faces popped up in different corners of the screen. And we did it via Facebook Video Messenger.
Yeah.
And it was really good to be able to do that because it was so important just to connect with one another, to ask those deep questions of how are you doing?
Yeah.
How did that impact you?
Can I just veer off for 1 second?
Sure.
And to have those like times of laughter.
Right.
Just putting on the filters where you put on like different like hats and
filters. Those were so funny.
So it's
we got some good pictures of our home group doing some like funny like photos.
Yeah, so like during those tough times, it's important and really beneficial to be able to gather, even like just video or phone call and laugh. Because laughter is the best medicine.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure Jesus and the disciples, like, they must have pulled pranks on each other.
100%.
That's a whole nother podcast, but I'm just saying.
do you think Jesus walking on water had anything to do with, let's see if I can get him to believe this, and then, like, little laughter in there.
Yeah. Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Do you think
Yeah, Jesus was just walking, and Peter's like, yeah, I'll come, and then splash. I'm just kidding.
Come on.
Or maybe Jesus said, I'm coming, and Peter heard, come to me. Yeah, okay, sure, Lord. Splash. Oh, that's not what I said, but I'll help him up.
Yeah.
No, just kidding. Right. Online home groups, right?
Yes.
Like, so, you talked about how, like, actually, like, that didn't even, like, veer off. Like, you actually, like, hit the nail on the head. Like, I think it was actually important to have those moments of laughter in the home group.
Yeah. And
right?
I think
because we were under some really stressful times. I mean, we still are, but... Yeah. This was new. Like, the whole world is affected by this.
Yeah, and I think times are just continually changing. No matter when you're listening to this or watching it, like, there's, like, we don't even know where this world is going.
Right.
And, like, is this COVID going to be, like, going, like, so much worse? Or
who knows?
Is it going to be...
As we're entering a second wave, potentially?
Yeah, or is this going to be, like, gone?
Yeah, so this is a time in which, like, online... home groups would be such an advantage if you can't gather physically. I actually want to read a Bible verse, and I want to read from Acts chapter 8, verse 4. And it says here, "But the believers who were scattered preached the good news about Jesus wherever they went. And so this just goes to show that even in times like just leading up to this, the believers were under lots of persecution, and that even though they were scattered, they still preach the good news. And so here we have like the advantage of technology, where technology, while it does have its limitations, we're seeing churches leverage it to their full potential, and in which authentic relationships can still be had via an online home group. I would say it's not ideal, but I think it's good for now, and it can work. Yeah. Right. Like, what are your thoughts on like having accountability, through this type of platform with one another?
I think if you don't have an accountability partner, I would encourage you to pray on that and try and find somebody to keep you accountable to the way that you want to live your life, commitments that you want to stay true to, or if you're trying to break a habit or something like that, just find somebody to check in on you. And so during a time like this, I would say just making a date with your accountability partner, or whether it be a group of friends, to just check in and say, hey, how are you doing with this? Are you able to get through this?
Yeah, totally.
And so, whether it be your home group, whether it be a good friend, just checking in on each other via phone or video. Like, it's so much easier to lie on text messages. Exactly. I would say video is probably the best way to keep accountable.
Yeah, hashtag no filter, right?
No filter.
Yeah, and that's the beautiful thing about home groups, is that, you can come, you can be yourself, loved by one another, care for one another, have that accountability, read the Bible together, worship, really, really, really good for these challenging times, a place to nourish our faith, potential friendships to be stirred, possible romances. Go back to episode 1 if you're wanting to know what we meant by that. But just as we're wrapping up, I think, to conclude, I think we recognize that healthy friendships are important. It's important to surround yourself with community. Yeah. A home group is a great place. An online home group is a great place to find those friendships, through your church. And I just wanted to say, if you are someone who's even looking for an online home group, or you're wondering, tell us more about that, I would encourage you just to drop us a comment and ask the question in one of our social media platforms, whether it's through Facebook or Instagram or YouTube or wherever you're watching or listening right now, and say, hey, like, I really liked what you said, or just say, how can I get connected with a home group? And maybe, we can try and point you in the right direction depending on where you live, or, what city or state or province you may be watching from. Yeah. Yeah. Do you have anything to
add? Just shout out to everybody, especially extroverts during this time where you are feeling alone. Right. I would just encourage you to find a church or a group to get together with, to make sure that you're not alone, because I think depression is something that comes about if you are alone. Even to introverts like myself, having somebody to talk to and having somebody to care about you is really important, no matter where or when in time it is. So,
Yeah, that's really good. And so we hope that today that, you're encouraged on what a healthy friendship is, what healthy community looks like. And if you want some direction or just advice on how to find an online home group, drop us a note in the comments, and we'd love to get in touch with you. Thanks so much for joining us on episode 2 of the podcast.
Thanks for joining us today in our basement.
Yeah, and before you go, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Go ahead and share this content in your social media platforms, and we hope to see you next time in our basement.